The Kaya Girl, Chapter 4. Sorry, madam, I said with an ingratiating smile as the customer marched into the shop. I scuttled after her with a quick backward nod at Faiza, who was already melting into her surroundings. I was nervous that she would complain to Auntie Lydia. She looked the type, but it seemed my apology had done the trick because she said nothing and allowed herself to be fussed over by Auntie, pointing at the most expensive lace fabrics. I had a feeling Faiza would be needed for this purchase. The lady chose my favorite cloth in the shop, a peach lace encrusted with specks of diamante that were hardly visible but sparkled fabulously when they caught the light. It was that hidden brilliance that I loved. When Auntie opened it out, 100 tiny gems caught the fluorescent light overhead, and I could not help gasping. The lady looked at me with a smile. "You have a good taste like me," she said with a wink. Suddenly, I recognized her. She was the one who had come into the shop in the mesmerizing outfit the day I had met Faiza. I liked her after the compliment and was glad she was the one to buy my favorite cloth. It was the only one of its kind in the shop, and I was sorry to see it go, but at the same time, I felt Auntie's pride in a good sale. I thought of Faiza's description of her auntie's cloth with the glints of gold. I knew how she felt about it. One day, I too would own gorgeous fabrics, I thought. I wondered sadly if Faiza ever would. Not if she remained a Kayayo, that was for sure. The lady also bought some high-heeled gold shoes and a matching bag. "My daughter is having an engagement next month," she announced proudly. Well, Auntie really pulled out all the stops after that. "Aifro Mame, mother of the bride," she exclaimed. "We have to make you look like a queen, so that when they come to take your daughter, they will know where she is coming from." The lady agreed, beaming. I could just picture her in the lace and gold accessories, splendid as the sunset. She chose 2 other lace fabrics, 2 kente cloths, and a glittering piece of asoke. The bride would have to change her outfit several times, she explained. "Call your friend," Auntie finally instructed me when the lady was done. It was almost an hour later. She had fallen in love with the shop, and while chattering with Auntie, had decided to buy pretty things for all her daughters, not just the bride. This auntie of mine, I thought with a smile as I stepped outside. People didn't even notice when she was wooing their money out of them. She had even managed to get herself invited to the engagement. I shaded my eyes against the blinding outdoors, and Faiza appeared as magically as she had disappeared. I saw a look of recognition and then a slight puzzlement on the lady's face as Faiza entered the shop, and she realized that this Kayo really was my friend. This time, Auntie herself wanted to accompany the lady to the car park, so I stayed in the shop. I pictured the engagement ceremony with all the women in their finery, looking good, smelling good, feeling good. The bride's family would sit on one side and the groom's on the other. In a stylish procession, the young women of his family would carry in bowl after bowl on their heads, like Faiza, but these bowls would be full of lavishly wrapped gifts for the bride and her family. The family's Ochame would say that their son had seen a lovely flower in the garden of their prospective in-laws and had come to ask if he could pick it. She would joke and sing, and everyone would join in and be in the best of moods. After a certain number of items had been presented, the bride would make her first appearance amid a procession of women shouting, "Aifro, Dondo." In my mind's eye, she was a lovely young girl draped in glittering lace and beautiful beads, smiling shyly in the middle of the noisy procession and scanning the crowd for her beloved. But then my daydream switched tracks and she turned into Asana, sad and weeping at being given to old Alhaji Brown Teeth. What different things marriage could be, I mused. The increased volume of the TV interrupted my thoughts. Gifty had turned it up, taking advantage of Auntie's absence to watch her favorite Mexican telenovela. A handsome man and a beautiful woman were saying how much they loved each other. Their faces moved closer as if pulled by invincible strings between their unblinking eyes. As their lips touched, I thought of Alhaji Brown Teeth again. I shuddered and turned away. "Ah, what's wrong with you?" asked Gifty. You don't like kissing or what? She continued in the tone of one who did it all the time. That was typical of her. I couldn't help rising to the bait. And you? Who have you kissed? I asked. My boyfriend, she responded, with a gesture like a rap artist, dropping the D in a bit to sound American. It irritated me so much when she did that. She seemed to think she needed to impress me that way and could clearly not see she was doing the opposite. What boyfriend? I wanted to ask, but thought better of it. She would only invent some story that would waste my time. I pitied her for needing to be some invented person with an invented accent and invented lifestyle to impress me. I wondered when Pfizer would be back. Gifty's fakeness always made me long for a company, the way I would always long for a salty piece of Kobe after eating too many sweets. As if she had heard my thoughts, Pfizer knocked lightly on the door. I knew it was her because that was how she knocked when she knew Auntie Lydia was not there and wanted to find out if I was free. I opened the door eagerly. Your auntie said I should tell you she is going to take the lady to the seamstress, she informed us. She said you should watch the shop for her. This was good news. With the traffic and the chatter those two had struck up, she would be away for a good while. Whenever she asked us to watch the shop, it meant that she was not hurrying back. I was dying to hear the continuation of Pfizer's story, but at the same time, I had been wanting to show her the internet, and this was too good an opportunity to miss. There was no way to describe it to her without her actually seeing it for herself. The story would have to wait. I beckoned her inside. She hesitated. I usually came outside rather than asking her in, but this time, I was confident because I knew we had time. Although Auntie had become much more relaxed about Pfizer, and I suspected, almost grown to like her, it was a tacit rule that we conducted our friendship outside the shop and that she only came in to carry customers' goods. I was not too worried about Gifty because, much as she resented Pfizer, I knew she would not want to get into my bad books by reporting me. Moreover, I was older than her and she was a little scared of me. Pfizer knew about computers, but had never been this close to one, and she gave a little jump backwards when it hummed into life at a touch of my finger. Gifty guffawed, but we both ignored her. That was something she disliked about Pfizer, that her contempt just seemed to bounce off the girl and come right back at her. She went silently back to her telenovela, raising the volume higher still to spite us. I was glad as it gave us some privacy. Pfizer watched the changing display on the laptop screen closely as it booted to life, and I could almost see her thoughts racing just as fast. I googled Toulon and found a website that gave some facts about the area. I read and translated them and she exclaimed in fascination, "Yes, it's true. Those are the things we farm. How do they know?" I showed her a landscape photo with termite hills and shea nut trees, and she cried out in excitement, "Yes, it's really our place." Then I clicked on a photo of a mosque, and as it loaded in full size, she recognized it with a loud whoa, and a smile almost encircled her whole face. "My uncle rides there on his bicycle every Friday for prayers," she said. I told her the population of the town, and she pointed at me and said, "You have never been there, and yet you're able to tell me how many people are living there." And she shook her head in wonder. I read out a list of villages in the vicinity, and she laughed at my pronunciation till tears flowed down her cheeks. I was laughing too, clowning around. She would struggle to recognize each name, and the moment she did, would call out the correct version in delighted recognition. My attempts to copy her drew fresh laughter from both of us, especially when I tried to reproduce a sound she made in the back of her throat that just did not exist in any other language I knew. Gifty shushed us, but we ignored her, and she turned back to the TV, sounding a loud between her teeth. I wanted to Google something else, but Pfizer made me continue with the list of villages, hoping to hear her own, and sure enough, when she made it out through my mangled pronunciation, she gave a joyful little giggle. It was one of the real tongue twisters, but I made an extra effort since it was her very own village, and she made an extra effort to teach me the correct pronunciation. One day, I will come and visit you there, I told her. You are most welcome, she beamed and then added hesitantly, if only you'll be comfortable at our place. I knew what she meant, and I'd never felt like braving the discomforts of village life before, but I felt differently now. It was a great afternoon. From Pfizer's village, we went to America on the internet, and I showed her the White House and the Statue of Liberty. She could not believe that people could go up into the crown. How can something built by humans be so big? She marveled. So I took her to Egypt to show her what humans had built thousands of years ago. She could not believe that they had built the pyramids just to house dead kings. Then we traveled millions of years back to see the dinosaurs. She gave another little jump backwards when T-Rex reared up on the screen. "Whoa," she cried again. "Look at its teeth." She had difficulty getting her mind around such vast time periods, and she also had trouble with the concept that dinosaurs had lived on Earth far longer than humans. Even the mere fact that they had existed was a lot to swallow, and when I explained to her that their remains helped create the oil we now use for petrol, she scanned my face sharply. If she had not trusted me, she would have doubted her eyes and ears. She asked me what had happened to the dinosaurs, and I told her what I had heard on a nature program on the Discovery Channel, that they had been killed by an asteroid crashing into the Earth. How to explain this properly was another challenge, and I googled websites about the solar system and showed her the planets and tried to explain how they revolve around the sun. She asked me how we could possibly be revolving around something that rose and fell in the sky every day. I told her I didn't really know, but that she would just have to trust me on that. If the people in my village knew all these, she whispered, they would never believe it. I had never appreciated the wonder of knowledge as much as I did that day, when I rediscovered the world through the eyes of someone who had never really known it was out there. I wondered what it must be like to know so little and have no idea how much more there was to know. It suddenly seemed a great privilege to know things I had always taken for granted. I was surprised at myself. I had thought we would spend most of our time googling film stars and fashion pages, downloading pop videos on YouTube and drooling over handsome stars. I would never have thought we could have so much fun just finding out about the world around us. I had never realized how interesting it was.